Hello and welcome back to Super Necessary. Today we're joined by two of Next Gen's best fighters, Nathan Fletcher and Matt Bonner. How's it going,
What's happening,
guys?
boys?
How are you, fellas?
Thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Pleasure.
Nice one for having us on.
So, first of all, we did have this planned a few weeks back. We put it on our Twitter and everything, and then we kind of all come to a decision to postpone this for a little while because you were getting your fights sorted out for the first ones of the year. So Matt, you're fighting on the 19th, and Nathan, you're fighting the following night on the same card as Paddy. So can you tell us a little bit about your opponents? If you want to go first, Matt.
I'm fighting James Webb, who's he's the ex-Cage Warriors champion. He got dethroned by Natty's Frederick, who still holds the belt. He's good. You have to be good if you're ex-Cage Warriors world champion, but I think he's quite predictable in what he does. I think I've got a good idea how he's going to approach the fight. I think I've got the tools to beat him and put myself in, hopefully, the number one contendership spot. To be fair.
So is that your next? What you're eyeing up next if you are able to beat him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's anyone on the roster who's kind of fought the level that I fought. If you just look at the last kind of two guys, George Smith was on a 5-fight winning streak. Matt Inman, kind of a UK MMA legend, that was his 31st fight. He'd won 20 of those fights. So I kind of think for me, there's no real kind of other challenger to get past after this one, after getting past Webb. That for me is the fight that makes sense.
Yeah. And yourself, Nathan, you're fighting the following night on the same card as Paddy. Must be great for you to fight on the same card as him.
Yeah, the other week, Paddy come in the gym and he said that he heard that I was opening up the main card. So I was buzzing with that, thinking, you know what I mean, that's a nice position to be in. And then a couple of days later, Paul come in, my coach, and said, "No, I've spoke to Ian. I think you're on the prelims, mate." So I was buzzing for a little bit that I was going to be on the main card, but I don't think that's happening now. So I'm still on the prelims for now, but I've got a good opponent. I'm fighting Michele Martignoni. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. He's Italian. Probably butchered his name then, but yeah, he's decent. There's not a lot on him, to be honest. He's only had one fight on Cage Warriors. He beat Wesley Meyer, who's, you know, a decent level, a good striker. A very different style to me. But he's 6-0, he's undefeated, so it's a good name to take out. And obviously, like I said, he just beat Wesley, who's like another good name in the division. So that's going to put me right up there, getting a win and especially a finish over him. I think that'll put me right up there in my division. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to get in there.
Oh, what do you think is the biggest threat that your opponents pose against you that would stop you getting that win?
Come on, Matt, do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I would say for James, he's a good finisher in terms of his submission skills, and he will stall the fight almost. He'll press you up against the cage. He'll hold you there. He'll take his time. He'll take you down. He'll hold you there. He'll throw a little bit of ground and pound. He just seems to be able to do just enough to be able to kind of hold you down. And like I say, kind of spoil the fight in some kind of way. And then, you know, you'll rush. You'll leave a gap open, and there's the rear naked choke around triangle that he likes to do. So that's the kind of the thing that I've approached this camp with, you know, being strong off my back, being able to get up, being strong on the cage. That's where I see James kind of wanting to take the fight, and that's where he's wanting to take the fight for the last, you know, at least the last 6 fights that I've watched of him.
So is the main object then to keep that fight standing, would you say?
Yeah, certainly after my Inman fight, where I think I've really finally. It's a strange one because I started as a striker and then I went more to kind of a wrestler grappler, and now I'm finding my feet back to being a striker again. But yeah, I think, you know, approaching this fight in terms of wanting to get a nice finish with the hands and show my stand up again would be the way to go for me, for sure.
Yeah, and what about you, Nathan?
My opponent's fairly well rounded. I think we saw him grapple more against Wesley, but I don't think he's going to take that approach from me. I think that was because he was getting outstruck. So I think he fancies himself as a bit of a striker. He's got a few knockouts on his record. But obviously, my grappling is a different level to anyone else he's ever fought. So I think he's going to come in and look to try and stand with me. But to be honest with you, I'm not too worried about his stand-up either. I think he's not like a high-skilled striker. He's more of like he's got a powerful punch. He throws like 1 or 2 shots at a time. Doesn't really like set things up. He's not like a big combination puncher. It's just like an overhand right and a left hook that he's catching people with. So to be honest, I'm confident wherever the fight takes place. But I think my main advantage is going to be in the grappling, like it is with pretty much anyone else a fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm confident that I'll be able to go in there and implement my game plan. Get the takedown and put on a grappling clinic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Nathan, you mentioned this fight's going to still be on the prelims. With fans like not being allowed in and stuff like that, does it still feel like a prelim, or does it all just kind of feel like one big card at the minute?
To be honest with you, it's probably better the earlier on you fight, because like with this one, we've all got to go down together. No matter if you're like the main event or the first fight of the night, you've all got to get the coach from the Cage Warriors hotel to the venue. So you just be sat around waiting. If you were fighting later on in the night. So I don't mind getting it out the way earlier, but it's just nice that the main card, there's just a little bit more eyes on you and stuff like that. Bit of a bigger platform. And I thought with me being on a 4-fight win streak and finishing everyone and him being 6-0, I thought that maybe it would have made the main card. But obviously that just shows how stacked the whole trilogy is, that even a fight as good as that is still a prelim fight. And it doesn't help that my teammate Liam Gittins, he's a couple of fights ahead of me, and he's fighting Brian Booland, who's obviously quite well known as well. So I think they're going to get the main card spot, opening up the main card. So Liam's beat me there, but it is what it is. I know I'll have plenty of main card slots over the next year or two anyway, fighting on Cage Warriors. So I'm not that bothered, really.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you both get started in combat sports?
I started when I was 10. I have a twin brother, Daniel, who he's still a Thai boxer. He's number 12 in the world at his weight class. We both started when we were 10-year-old. Did that for about 5-6 years. Enjoyed it, but then we ended up moving to Wales. I'm originally from Warrington, where I live now. And then when we moved to Wales, we ended up watching, it was the first time we had Sky TV, and we ended up watching The Ultimate Fighter. It was the first time we'd ever seen MMA before. I think it was, if I remember rightly, the BJ Penn and Jens Pulver season. And then we were kind of hooked from there then. And we were desperate to do MMA. Ended up buying a car, doing driving lessons and driving down to Widnes from Wales to train with at the Wolf Slayer by Mike Bisping, and Rampage and Chet Congo were training at the time, and loved it, to be fair. Absolutely loved it. And then Dan, my brother, he's kind of found his way back to Thai boxing, but he did originally do MMA at the same time as me.
And what about you, Nathan?
Yeah, I think I was about 13 or 14, and just one of my schoolmates, Kieran, was doing it a bit at a gym in Southport called the Dog Pit. And I don't even know what it was, really. I wanted to do some form of combat sports. I didn't like the idea of, because I was always like fairly small and that in school. I didn't like the idea of anyone being able to say anything to me and me not being able to defend myself. Do you know what I mean? I didn't like that idea. So I think I started off, I tried my hand at a bit of boxing for like a week or two at a club in Ormskirk. And then my mate Key basically said, like, listen, fuck that boxing off. You want to try this MMA? It's the real deal. It's proper fighting. So I went down to the Dog Pit with him, and he just tapped me out about 15 times. We were doing a grappling session. And he tapped me out a load, and then ever since then, I literally was just hooked. I realised I knew fuck all about fighting. So I got addicted to it then. And then there was a fella there called Carl McGrath, who was like an ex-GB wrestler back in his day. He was probably about 60 or 70 years old when he was coaching us wrestling there. But he used to be a good wrestler back in his day. And then he started taking me and my mate Adam Cullen down to Wigan to like Aspel Warriors and all that, the wrestling clubs there. And then I met a lad called Charlie Bowling, who's like one of the best wrestlers in the UK at the minute. And he's won like Commonwealth bronze medals and stuff like that. So I started going there most nights. And then ended up doing like freestyle wrestling for a few years and like competing in that until we found Next Gen. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. Adam found it, my mate Adam Cullen, and then we went back there and started putting the MMA back into it then. But we ended up competing in like wrestling for like 4 years or something just by chance, really, because in the MMA gym, in Southport, no one was turning up. So Carl used to take us to the wrestling gym instead, and we ended up doing that. So that's how I got into it.
Nice. So I'm curious about your nicknames. So we've got the Beast and we've got the Southport Strangler, which in all honesty sounds like a murderer.
Yeah. Where did you hear that from, the Southport Strangler? Someone told you that?
I'm sure I've seen Molly or Paddy or someone put it up on Twitter when you've announced the fight.
Well, that's not my nickname. People keep saying that. I know everyone jokes around the gym with it, but like you say, it sounds like a serial killer, like a newspaper headline. So I'm not going with the Southport Strangler. So
I think it sounds good myself. I think you should put that, Nathan, the Southport Strangler. I think you should go with it, honestly.
I mean, it's fitting, isn't it? Because I do get a lot of strangles in fights. But someone suggested one yesterday on like another interview I done was Flawless Nathan Fletcher, and I quite like the sound of that, because at the minute, obviously I wouldn't be able to ever lose if I had that as my nickname, would I? Because then I would be flawless. But for the time being, I quite like that because the alliteration's there, Flawless Fletcher, and it shows my my style of fighting and my record quite well for now. Anyway, Flawless at the minute.
Yeah, it's got a good ring to it, definitely.
Yeah, nice one.
What about you, Matt? Where did you get the Beast from? Is that something you coined or was it given to you?
No, you can never give yourself your own nickname. That's the rule with nicknames, I think. But I had my coach at the time was trying to organise me an MMA fight, and one of the coaches said, "Oh, we're not fighting Matt Bonner. He's a beast." And so that was that. I thought I'll nick that and I'll use that for the rest of my career. And the problem being with that is that there's about 12 beasts. Ashley Reese is a beast. Eddie Hall is the beast. So it don't really stand out. I just have to become. I'll have to become the best beast in the world somehow, I guess. Yeah. I'll win the Cage Warriors title and I'll be one of the best. But
you're in good company. Was it always like, so you said yourself, Matt, was it just the Ultimate Fighter that turned it into MMA? Was it ever the plan to go into it, or were you solely sort of kickboxing until you seen it?
We did. I say it started with Muay Thai because in Warrington, there's a very kind of quite a history of Muay Thai. We have some really good gyms in the area, really strong Thai gyms. And so if you're kind of doing combat sports in Warrington, it was always going to be Thai boxing. And you know, I'm 30 years old now. When I was 10 years old, MMA barely even existed, so there was never an option to kind of go into MMA unless it was some kind of judo or kind of, you know, Japanese jiu-jitsu or something like that. But when can we stop training Thai boxing? We was just going to stop and just leave it alone for a little bit. And then, like I said, Dan ended up turning it on TV and he got involved, and then we started watching that, and then we ended up watching the UFC. I think maybe the first event I saw was Gonzaga knocking out Crocott with the high kick, I think, if I remember. And then we were just hooked after that. We loved it. And then, like I say, we made the effort to get down and get involved. Like I said, didn't really look back from there, to be honest.
Yeah, hell of an event for your first one to start off on.
Yeah, it was shocking. Yeah, it was ace.
So this one's for you, Nathan. Obviously, in a past interview, you've said, you know, you're going to win every fight. You're not going to lose. You know, you're undefeated. Where does that confidence come from? Is that something you've always had since you were younger, or is that just something that learned as you went through your career?
Yeah, I just think every fight I'm growing more and more confident. I know how hard I train. I know the level of the guys I'm training with. I know how good my coaches are. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But I think it just comes from my mindset and my work ethic. Like, I know there's not many people out there that are putting in as much time and effort as I am. And do you know what I mean? Someone's got to be the best, so why can't it be me? If I'm doing everything right and leaving no stone unturned, then there's no reason that I can't be the best in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like I say, someone's got to be it. So that's just my mindset towards it all. If I do everything right and put in the work, then there's no reason it can't be me. So that's where my confidence comes from. And then obviously getting finishes and winning all my fights, that only grows my confidence every time. So just that really.
When you were both starting out, were there any fighters that you just looked up to? Anyone you tried to sort of model your style off?
I guess I suppose for me it was Bisping at the time. He was pretty much you know, at the current time, he was the only UK guy in the UFC. So that kind of give you the motivation to think, kind of what Nathan was saying there, if he can make it in and he's from the UK, why can't I be able to do it? And like I said, we had that training background anyway. So yeah, I guess I would say Michael Bisping. I'm not sure if he's the favourite fighter or even if I've got a favourite fighter, but he probably had the most influence because, like I said, he was just a northern lad who was good at fighting, and now he's a multimillionaire. And even now, though he's retired, he's still commentating and doing his show on. You know, he's just a journalist and whatnot. So I guess he's been inspiring. I'm not sure if I'd say he was an inspiration, but it was certainly inspiring knowing that there was a pathway there where for Bisping there probably wasn't a pathway to get to the UFC.
Yeah.
Early on for me, I used to like watching Uriah Faber and all the alpha male guys because they're all small, like bantamweights, like wrestling style. So I used to like watching them when I first got into it. But like, to be honest, I like similar to where Matt takes inspiration from the likes of Bisping and that. I look at a lot of UK fighters like Jack Shaw, Nathaniel Wood, people like that who are, my size, not much older than me, and been training similar sort of time to me and stuff like that, and they're doing good things in the UFC now. So looking at them and seeing how their careers are going, I know that if I keep doing the right things, then I'm going to follow a similar sort of path to them. So yeah, I take inspiration from loads of fighters, though, to be honest. Even just looking at the likes of Peter Yan and all the guys at the top of my weight class. Dillashaw, I used to look up to him a lot until he got popped for cheating. But so I'm not looking up to him anymore. But until then, I did. But yeah, just looking at all the best guys around my size, I like to take little bits from all of them. Do you know what I mean?
I think Nathan, you mentioned previously about all of yous, obviously go to the Cage Warriors event, but can you talk about what's that like when a lot of yous are just on your way there, you arrive, and what that's like just going as a team?
Yeah, it's a boss atmosphere. I think out of all the gyms on Cage Warriors, Next Gen usually have the most fighters on the card. I mean, like most of our pro team are signed with Cage Warriors, so every time there's a Cage Warriors on, there's always a few of us fighting. It just makes it easier going down, knowing that like all your teammates are with you, they're feeling the same as you, with like the weight cut on that week. You're all going through it together, so it definitely spurs you on, makes it a lot easier. And then like getting to the Cage Warriors hotel, these last couple of trilogies have been sick because it's just full of like-minded people. You're around all of the fighters. You can go and talk to lads from other gyms and that. It's just a great atmosphere being around them all. Do you know what I mean? So I really enjoyed it. The last one in December. So yeah, I think it's boss.
Yeah. Matt, you mentioned earlier your last fight was against Matt Inman, very highly experienced fighter, well-respected fighter. Obviously, 2020 was a tough year with the pandemic and everything. How important was it for you to end the year on a high note?
Oh, it was that important because, I'd finished George Smith and I was proud of myself after that fight, but I've never kind of managed in my career to get that little winning streak going. I've always kind of been that win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. So for me to get two fights in a row against two really good guys was really important. And again, it was nice. It was just nice to have a little bit of a scrap. I tend to kind of say I'm going to have a scrap, and then when I get in there, I want to wrestle, I want to grapple. But I knew as soon as I stepped in the cage, you're going to go forward. I remember the way Cage Warriors works is you've got like a warm-up area, and then you've got like a holding area just before you're about to go in to the cage. So you can hear kind of the fight previous to you still going ahead. And I remember kind of pacing up and down and saying to my coaches, I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to finish him. And it's just nice to be able to follow through on that when you're in there. And like I say, I think for me, I was always looking for that fight that I would watch back on again and kind of be pleased with and be proud of, and show people without sounding too silly saying that. And I kind of still watch that fight every other weekend. It just gives me puts a smile on my face. So yeah, I was really pleased with that fight. And like you say, you can finish the end of the year nice and strong. You can enjoy Christmas, and then you can get ready for the next fight, which is March the 19th for me.
So currently in contrast to that, yourself, Matt, you've mentioned that before joining Next Gen, you used to train yourself. Is that right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about how vital Next Gen has been to your growth as a fighter? And have you noticed many improvements since going there?
It's been massive, and I think it's probably I don't know how it saved my career, but it's put me on in the right direction. I think I was probably very naive when I was kind of training on my own. Well, not by myself, but I was going to gyms and I didn't really have any coach or anyone who was going to point me in the right direction. There wasn't really anyone who was massively experienced, and there wasn't really anyone who did it for a full-time job. If you go to Next Gen, there's about 5 coaches there, and their full-time job is coaching MMA. Whether it's jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or whatever they do, that's their life. And the kind of the coaches who I was with at the time would, go and work 8 hours in the office and then do 2 hours in the evening. It just wasn't very professional. And again, I can only blame myself for that, for kind of not putting myself in the environment like Next Gen, where you are going to be pushed and your coaches are going to tell you your weaknesses and are going to put you in positions where you're uncomfortable against guys, against really, really strong sparring partners. Because I don't really, for the most part, even spar. Before I kind of went to Next Gen, how silly that sounds, it was very much more like Thai sparring, where it was kind of tippy-tappy sparring, and where, that was the big difference coming to Next Gen. That was the biggest change for me, was real hard sparring and being in the trenches a little bit and having to really work your way up out of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like you say, it's a completely different feel, like Thai sparring to MMA sparring. It kind of, I think it probably prepares you better for the fighting, because you haven't got that sort of what's it like getting it feeling in your head. So you're kind of preparing yourself already, aren't you?
For sure.
Like you said, Nathan, you've got a 4-0 record at the minute, 3 out of the 4 being submissions. You mentioned about the wrestling. Is that just something that comes natural to you? Is it to look for the submissions?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's just because I put more time into the grappling than I have my striking. I think if I'd have put a similar sort of time into the wrestling that I did coming up, say I did that with boxing instead, I think I'd fall back on my boxing more. But it just happened that I ended up going to Wigan and meeting Charlie and wrestling, solely focusing on that for a few years. That's why I've got that background in wrestling and grappling to fall back on. So that's why I favour it. But I definitely am becoming more well-rounded. I feel a lot more confident in my striking, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that me grappling is still superior. So that's why a lot of my fights, you see me take it to the floor and look to work my jiu-jitsu. But I'd like to win a couple of fights by using me striking. Do you know what I mean? Eventually it'll come, but it's sort of like path of least resistance in it. And at the minute, I feel like my grappling's on another level to everyone I've fought. So I'd be stupid not to just go in there and take them down and do what I'm good at. But the striking's coming. It's coming on each camp. I'm getting better and better. So you might see a knockout soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Not unlike being having a more well-rounded game, keeping your opponents on your toes and stuff like that. So I'm sure it'll come with more time. So for both of you now, is UFC something you're looking at this year, or do you think it might be a bit too early to be looking at the UFC as the next step?
I think the thing with Cage Warriors is that the UFC is always going to be an opportunity, because there's always a clear path there. It's very much, even when you look at something like UFC Fight Island, if a middleweight drops out, or if someone in Nathan's division drops out, you could potentially get a call up for that. I mean, and even if you don't, you're still working your way up to the title and then hopefully, you defend the title and then off you go to the UFC. So I'm not sure about this year for me personally. I'm kind of going to take one step at a time and just work my way towards that Cage Warriors title. But certainly if the opportunity came ahead, you'd be grabbing that with both hands. I'd love to go and fight on Fight Island or go to Vegas. That would be, obviously, anyone who kind of competes in MMA wants to fight in UFC, and I'm no different to anybody else when it comes to that. That's the ticket for me, certainly.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. Obviously, the UFC is the end goal. That's why I got into doing it. That's what I'm doing it for now, because I want to get to the UFC. I don't think this year for me really. I've only had 4 pro fights, so we'll see how many fights I can get this year. But like Matt said, we're in the right place. Cage Warriors is by far the best promotion to be fighting on in Europe if you want to go to the UFC. You just look at the track record. They've sent like nearly 100 fighters to the UFC, and most of the British stars that have come from that are in the UFC now have come from Cage Warriors. Do you know what I mean? The likes of McGregor, Bisping, Joanna Jacek, all them, all Jack Shaws, Nathaniel Woods, everyone who's in the UFC now has come through Cage Warriors. So we're definitely in the right place. But I don't know about this year. I'm not in a rush really. I'm only 23, so got a lot of time, still a lot of room to grow. Like I was saying before, my striking's coming on each fight. I know myself, I've got a lot of room for development before I'm the finished product. So I wouldn't mind staying on Cage Warriors for the next couple of years even, and building my skills and building my experience more. So when I do get to the UFC, I'm more than ready to get straight into the top 10 and be challenging for the belt. So I mean, I wouldn't want to go too early, come up against someone a higher level than me and get cut from the promotion. So I don't mind taking it slow and doing it properly and getting the experience I need before I go there. So I'm not in a rush.
How much does it help having people like Meatball and Chris Fishgold, and Paddy seems sort of on the cusp at the moment of being the next one to go into the UFC? How much does it help training and just being around them in general?
It helps a lot. Now, obviously, again, we're talking about pathways to get to UFC, and Chris and Molly and Paddy, that they've shown that the clear pathway. You win at Cage Warriors, you win the belt, and then you move on to UFC. So, to be surrounded by people, and obviously they've got loads of advice for you as well. And I assume, if me and Nathan got in the UFC, they'd be open for us asking loads of questions, having conversations and stuff. And obviously all the coaches, the thing is, because Molly and all the rest of it and Chris have been there, and because the coaches, it's not this big new experience. It's quite not old news to them, but they've been there and they've done it, and they're going to approach it with calm and collectively, and not kind of be that kind of deer in the headlights attitude, I think. So again, talking about you want a professional environment, you want professional coaches, and that's certainly what we've got at Next Gen.
And can you talk a bit what it was like when you first rolled with Paul Rimmer, especially with him being one of the first people in Britain to get a black belt?
Me personally, I've never rolled. Sorry, Nathan, you go, bud.
I was going to say, I've rolled with Paul a few times and don't get anywhere near him. Like, I'll be honest. I know Paul's a lot bigger than me, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? He's got a big weight advantage, but obviously his skills are fucking through the roof as well. So I remember the first time I rolled with him, I think he just north-south choked me about 4 or 5 times because he's got naughty top pressure. So that's my experience. That's what it's been like rolling with Paul. But yeah, go on, Matt. What were you going to say?
I've never rolled with Paul. I've rolled more with, especially for this camp, a guy called Ben Hill. Ben Hill's probably one of the best brown belts in the country at the moment. Top guy in Next Gen. And I kind of said to Ben before, I said, Ben, how good is Rimmer in terms of how good is his jiu-jitsu? And he said he's, in terms of his technical level, his technical knowledge, he says he's absolutely world class. Yeah. I think he's probably, maybe if you look at Paul, you might underestimate him slightly, but he is, in terms of his knowledge, like Ben Hill said, he's world class. He knows what he's doing, and so if he gives you some advice, you certainly listen to it.
I kind of feel sorry for. Sorry, go on.
Can I add something to that quickly? What Bonner was saying then. Yeah. I just think a good example of how good Paul is of a coach is if you look at all his students and like how all of our styles are completely different. Especially someone like Paddy, who's got like slick triangles, good arm bars and stuff off his back. That's a completely different style of jiu-jitsu to how Paul rolls. Do you know what I mean? Because Paul's built completely different. So that just shows how good his knowledge is and his coaching ability to make people world class in areas where he's not particularly world class. Do you know what I mean? His style of jiu-jitsu is completely different to someone like mine or someone like Paddy's, but he can still coach us to be world class in them areas. So that just shows how good of a coach he is, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I feel sorry for anyone who underestimates him.
Yeah, same.
So you won 2020 Breakthrough Fighter of the Year, Nathan, which I'm sure you were absolutely delighted with. Are you hoping 2021 is the year that you drop the Breakthrough part and just get Fighter of the Year?
Hopefully, I've been Breakthrough Fighter twice, 2 years in a row now. So I'm not quite sure how you can break through twice in a row, but somehow I managed to do it. So maybe this year we'll go for Fighter of the Year. That'd be nice, or anything else, mate. Submission of the year or Fight of the Year, something like that. But anything other than Breakthrough again, I don't want to be breaking through anymore. I feel like I've already done that now, so I want to move to the next stage of your career.
Yeah, surely you can only break through so many times.
I know, exactly.
So what's your favourite thing about MMA and competing then?
For me, it'd be winning. No, I know it sounds a bit silly that, but it's. I think again talking about next gen, we talk about kind of 8-week training camps and stuff like that, and we don't do 8-week training camps. We train all the time. You might have a week off after you fight, but you're training all the time. So to put all that effort in, and, you have your little niggles and little injuries and stuff, but to put all that effort in and all the sacrifice that most fighters have to go through, and then to get the win at the end, it is satisfying, especially with being on a big stage now, and your mum and your dad and your brothers and sisters all watching on the TV, on UFC Fight Pass and all the rest of it. So to win and make them all proud of you, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd agree with that. I'd say winning is definitely the best part of it. That's why we do it. Do you know what I mean? That feeling of getting your hand raised after a fight. There's nothing you can do that compares to that feeling. Like just the feeling of relief and the joy that you get when you've been through it all. You've put in the hard work. You've done everything that you need to do, and then it pays off, and you win. And just every time it gets better and better. It's not like it's not worn off yet. Do you know what I mean? Every fight that you get in there, and it's the same feeling afterwards. Just the overwhelming sense of like relief and joy. And other than that, just like the constant improvement you've got to do. Something I love about MMA is that you're never a finished product. There's so many things to work on, whether it's your striking or your grappling or your wrestling, your cage work, your strength and conditioning. There's just so many aspects to the game. You can never get bored. It's not like, say for example, if I was just like boxing all the time and all I had to work on was 4 or 5, 6 different punches and that was it. Like, I don't know if I'd get fed up with that, but with MMA, there's just, you can go through phases of loving jiu-jitsu and being into watching that and rolling all the time. And then you can go through phases of watching loads of Thai and trying to work a bit of that into your style and then switching it up. And, some of the lads in our gym have got like karate and taekwondo backgrounds, so you can practice, a few of the kicks on the pads with them and stuff. There's just nothing, there's no end to the skills you can get and how much better you can get. So I love that part of it as well. Definitely.
Yeah. So Matt, obviously you mentioned you've got a few losses on your record, unfortunately. Are you the type of fighter who takes a lot from your losses, like you learn a lot from?
Yeah, sure. This is why I always say to guys who might ask me advice on kind of amateur level, that's really when you want to be taking your losses and learning and stuff. I kind of did it ass backwards. Nathan's done it the right way. He's gone to the right gym at the right time. They've built him up nicely, and that's not all the opponents he's fought have been very, very good, high quality, and he's been able to smash through him. But if you look at Nathan, he's done it right. I kind of did it all ass backwards, which is why I've kind of got the losses on my record. But it's kind of like you mentioned, if you're going to lose, you best had learned from it as well. I think that the last loss against Jamie Richardson, I learned so much from that. A hell of a lot. I'm almost maybe not even a different fight, but maybe a different person. There's definitely a different mentality there. I hope people can see that when I'm fighting, that there's a different kind of fight than there was when I fought Jamie. So yeah, like I say, if you are going to lose and you are going to go through the heartbreak of losing, then at least learn from your mistakes and become better from it. And that's what I've tended to do as I've lost some fights. I've always come back as a slightly better version.
This one's for you, Nathan. Might sound mad, but do you think you've got a similar path in Cage Warriors like that of Max Holloway in UFC? Obviously, you've been with them since 2017. You're still young, and we've seen you grow in that time. Would you say that that was an alright comparison? So.
I'll take it. Don't get compared to Max Holloway. I'll definitely take that. Like he's one of the best to ever do it. But I know what you mean. Like I think it was me third amateur fight I had was in the Echo Arena on Cage Warriors on one of Paddy's undercards. So straight away, I've been in the Cage Warriors changing rooms. I've been fighting in arenas. I've been around it all. I've been there when Graham gives his pre-fight talk. Been to all the weigh-ins and stuff. So I've been around Cage Warriors since I was literally about 18 years old. And I think it's definitely helped because now I'm only 4 fights into my pro career, but I just feel so comfortable around everyone from Cage Warriors. I know all the staff members. I know most of the other fighters. I feel like I've got a good relationship with everyone on there. So I definitely think, I've grown my career on Cage Warriors, and that is, like I said before, the best platform to do it on in Europe. If you're going to compete in MMA at a high level in Europe, then Cage Warriors is the place to do it. So I'm made up that I've done that. And that just shows, again, like Matt was saying, picking the right gym, because Next Gen has got a boss relationship with Cage Warriors. Paul and Graham are good mates, and all of our fighters tend to go through Cage Warriors. So it's just down to that, really. It weren't even me that made the decision, actually. It was my mate Adam Cullen. He found Next Gen for us, but thank God he did, because he found the right place for us to go, do you know what I mean? And then been fortunate enough to develop my career on Cage Warriors.
Yeah. You mentioned, Matt, that you in Next Gen, you don't really have like a training camp per se. Does it help when in the build up to the fights that sort of the intensity is just the same as it is all year round? You're not having to up your levels or anything, because obviously you will up your levels, but you don't have to as much because you're kind of just always there anyway.
Well, that's right. You kind of, like you've mentioned there, you get used to that intensity and your body gets used to it. And obviously, if you did get kind of pick up little niggles and stuff, you have to manage them. We've got a guy called Cy Squires who comes into Next and he'll give you a sports massage or address any injuries that you've had. But as long as you keep on top of those injuries, I've never found a reason why I shouldn't kind of be in the gym, and I've always wanted to be in the gym. I can never really understand these guys who they'll have this, like we say, this 8-week, 10-week training camp, and then you won't see them until 6 weeks later when maybe another fight's on the cards. And I think it's just the wrong mentality. You have to stay training, stay with your strength and conditioning, work on the weaknesses. Even if you win a fight, there's normally something you can break down and something that you can work on. So yeah, for sure, I enjoy being in the gym, and I think maybe that's something about Next Gen is all the lads get on. It's a good atmosphere in there, and we all just want to get better, and we can kind of help each other with doing that.
Yeah. Oh, this question, both of you again, it's kind of come from the card that's gone with UFC. If there was one rule you could take out or put in MMA, what would it be?
Good question. I don't really mind the rule set as it is. I quite like the way things are. One rule. What would you take out, Matt? I don't know.
This is probably going to be quite controversial, but I've always preferred pride rules in terms of kicking the head on the floor.
You horrible bastards.
I know.
On the floor. I knew you'd take something like that as well.
I know. I think if we're going to do it, why don't we do it? Why don't we take these? I think I hate these guys who want to just drop down and pull guard.
Yeah.
That's what kind of irritates me. So I think if you've got the kind of the danger of kicking to the head, that would take that kind of aspect out of MMA, because it's not entertaining to watch when somebody does that, and it's not kind of relevant to self-defense in any way. You would never do that, outside a nightclub on the pavement. You wouldn't ever fall to your back and expect someone to come into your guard. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of allowing kicks to the head on the floor.
I can see how that'd make it better, to be fair. Yeah. I mean, if someone can volley you in the head standing up, then why can't they volley you in the head when you're on the floor? Do you know what I mean? It's going to do the same sort of damage in it, so that makes sense.
So would you then remove the rule of being a down opponent then with what you have just said?
Yeah,
so.
Probably.
Yeah, definitely. I just think it's kind of, it's just messy. It's one of those messy rules. Is his hand on the floor? Is it not? Is he playing the game? Is he doing it on purpose? Just get rid of it, and then what happens. You saw it with Jan and Sterling, didn't we? It's caused all that controversy, and it's just a bit silly. Again, at the end of the day, I know martial arts is a sport and whatnot, but it's born from self-defense, and that's nothing you would ever do in a street fight. So for me, certainly get rid of it, and crack on.
Yeah, lovely.
Speaking of the fight with Jan and Sterling, just for a second, what did you make of Sterling? A lot of people are saying he was faking it, that he wasn't really hurt and he just wanted the belt because he knew he was losing. What was your take on it, both of you?
I think he probably was hurt. It was a clean shot, one. He got kneed right in the head. Yeah. I think in the heat of the moment, there's probably a lot of things going through his mind. He knows he's tired. He knows he's probably down on the scorecards. It's a way out. You don't know what, like you say, you're in a very heightened sense, especially if you're in a world title fight. You know what I mean? Just being in a fight on Cage Warriors is mad enough. Your head's everywhere. You're thinking a million miles an hour. So I don't blame him for doing what he did. Realistically, he could have said, no, yeah, I'm fine to continue, stood up, been concussed from the shot, and then ate a right hand, got dropped and lost the fight. And then his rematch is gone and all of that. So in terms of his career, I think he's done the smart move. What he shouldn't have done is gone on Instagram afterwards and started posting pictures with the belt and all his boys like celebrating. That's what's kind of riled everyone up and been a bit like, fucking hell, lad, come on, obviously you're not the champ, are you? You didn't win it. But by saying he couldn't continue in that, I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think, again, this might not be the most honourable thing to say, but if Sterling loses that fight, he loses his win bonus. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And again, going into the next fight against Jan, even if he loses, he's going to have more money because he's a champion, surely. More sponsorship. Yeah. Kind of the sensible decision is, what he did was claim that he was concussed or whatever. Nobody knows but Sterling. But I can kind of see why people would say, he wasn't hurt and he embellished on it. But personally, myself, I would have done the same as what Sterling does. I certainly understand why he did what he did.
Yeah.
So, what's in your careers at the moment? What's your biggest accomplishment, and what accomplishments are you working towards?
Good question. Accomplishments I'm working towards is a goal of mine's always been obviously to win the Cage Warriors bantamweight title first, and then go on to the UFC and win the UFC world title. They're the two goals that I've got long term. I think in terms of what I've already achieved, just every fight is a small accomplishment. I think a big highlight of my career was my third pro fight. I fought in Manchester, and I sold the most tickets I've ever sold for a fight. This was right before we went into the first lockdown. Sold about 110 tickets or something like that. I had all my friends there, all my family. And then I finished the guy in the first round. That was when I fought that Joanne Segas, the French guy. And that was just an unreal night. And it just getting on the cage after the win, looking into the crowd and seeing that many people there cheering for me. It was like a moment that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean? So that was like a standout part of my career so far. Definitely.
Lovely.
I think for myself, I know I've mentioned this kind of earlier on in the podcast, but I think it was that Matt Inman fight where, it was a good fight. He still gets talked about in the gym occasionally, which is nice. And his face was proper smashed up at the end. So that was, again, it's just nice because everyone knows who Matt Inman is and everybody respects Matt Inman. And the guys who I talked to who trained with guys from SVG or know Matt have always said, everyone thinks Matt's going to win, Matt Inman's going to win and this and this. So I've always kind of been that underdog. So to win that Matt Inman fight, I love that. I love that fight. And similar to what kind of Nathan said in terms of the goal is obviously to win that Cage Warriors middleweight belt, and say hopefully with this fight with James Webb that'll be one step closer, and that's like you say that's the pathway to UFC. Win the Cage Warriors belt and then defend it a few times, and then move on to the UFC hopefully.
Yeah. So to go off that then, I see what's your opinions on the champions, obviously with you Matt, it's Matthias Frederick, and United it's Jack Cartwright. Because I know with these fights coming up, you're gonna win. I believe you will. So what are your opinions of the champions?
Do you want to go first, Matt, on that one?
Yes, I mean, Matthias, he's he's a bit of a funny one, Natty is, because he's super strong and he's powerful and he commits to every single shot that he throws. But there's an awful lot of kind of gaps there, weaknesses. He's very predictable in terms of he's always going to be the aggressive fighter. He never wants to take a step backwards. So there's maybe some things there that you can maybe make him walk onto shots. It's a strange one because I'll talk to people about Nattius and they'll say, "Oh my God, you're not going to fight him, are you?" Because he has knocked out people in one punch. I mean, knocked out Jamie Richardson in kind of spectacular fashion in the last Cage Warriors. But if you kind of pick him apart and Frederick is, well, like I mentioned before, very predictable. And if you can dodge his power for maybe the first 2-3 minutes of the round, then you're probably laughing for the next 2-3 minutes that you've got. So although you've got to be careful, he's powerful, he's got that knockout power, very explosive. His technical abilities is really quite poor, to be fair.
Yeah.
I actually rate Cartwright, to be honest. I think he's very good. He's like 9-0 or something. I think he's got 8 finishes. He hits hard for a bantamweight. Looks like he's got decent wrestling. I don't know how good his jiu-jitsu is, but his overall game, he seems pretty well rounded, and he comes to fight. Do you know what I mean? I've been around him before at the weigh-ins and stuff, and you can tell, who thinks that a dog's bollocks and who's a bit shying away. And Cartwright's definitely got that about him where you can tell you speak to him and that he, he knows, or he thinks he knows, that he's the boy and that. So, yeah, I rate him. To be honest, I think he's got a fight coming up now on this trilogy. And I think if he wins that, he's going to go to the UFC, to be honest, because he's like I said, 9-0, 10-0 or something with 8 or 9 finishes. So I can't see me fighting him on Cage Warriors. It could be a fight further down the line at the UFC. But in terms of his game, yeah, he's similar to like what Matt was saying about the middleweight champ. He's fairly basic. You know what I mean? He's just got a good right hand and a decent sprawl. He's like a sprawl and brawl style. So I think where I've got a bit more of a well-rounded game, I could definitely pose him problems. But that's not a fight I'm really too focused on because I feel like he's a little bit further on in his career than me. He's probably going to be getting signed to the UFC after this fight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've mentioned UFC is the main goal for both of you at the minute. Is it a case of UFC or nothing, or would you be interested if Bellator or One or even some one of the sort of smaller ones like PFL, if they approached you, would that be something that interested both of you?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of keep your options open with that sort of thing. Again, everyone wants to fight in the UFC because they're the daddy of combat sports, and I think they're probably going to be for the foreseeable future. But that's not to say PFL or One FC or Bellator or anywhere else doesn't. No, they still pay good money. It's still broadcasted on live TV and whatnot. So again, the UFC would be, I guess, the first choice. But that's not to say the other organisations aren't a good pick as well.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's definitely the UFC is where I want to be. Where I'm at now, I can say that in my career, I'm so early on, so I've got my sights fully set on the UFC. But that doesn't mean to say, like Matt was saying, the other organisations are only getting bigger. And at the end of the day, we're doing this, we're prize fighters, aren't we? So whoever's offering the most money as well, you've also got to take that into account. So I think anywhere I could earn a living fighting professionally, I'd be happy to fight for. But obviously the main goal is to be the UFC world champ, because then you're recognised as the best fighter in the world. Like, you even see the likes of Michael Chandler, who I've always rated very highly, but when he was coming into the UFC, everyone was kind of like, oh, he's not proved himself in the big leagues yet. Obviously Michael Chandler was like a Bellator world champ, one of the best to do it, but he didn't have that recognition as being one of the best just purely because he was outside of the UFC. So I think for me, I definitely want to be looking to get signed to the UFC and go and win the UFC title.
Yeah. I think with you saying about Chandler there as well, I think Ben Askren coming in to the UFC a couple of years back has kind of made people think that Bellator and One aren't as good, because we didn't really see the Ben Askren in the UFC that we did see in the likes of Bellator and One. So I think it gives people a sort of unfair opinion on Bellator and One.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely. Askren was a bit past it, wasn't he? When he signed for the UFC, he definitely wasn't the same Askren that, like you say, he was fighting on One and fighting on Bellator. So, yeah, a lot of the casuals will see that and think, oh well, obviously those leagues aren't as good as the UFC. I mean, like in some senses they're not. Do you know what I mean? The UFC is recognised as the best for a reason. But there's definitely high level world class fighters in all those top organisations.
So I've got a few questions left, more to do with your teammates, quite quick fire questions. Do you have any more questions, Jay? I'll just fire them off. Honestly.
Just the one, and if you want to fire them off, I can end with my one then.
Yeah. Okay, so who is the prankster in the gym?
Paddy, I would think.
Paddy.
Yeah.
Paddy, definitely.
Even that answer coming a mile off.
That's not hard to guess that one, is it?
No, not at all.
Who's the quietest, but then is like a killer once they fight?
Probably say Bonner's one of them, to be honest, Matt. You're a
I
bit of a chill guy, aren't you?
I was hoping you were going to say that. I think maybe Liam Gittins is a good shout as well. You know, he maybe not quiet, but he's like the nicest kid going, but he's a killer when he gets in there.
That's it. I was going to say he's not quite quiet, Liam. He's quite loud, isn't he? But
I hope I don't share a room with Liam Gittins at the next trilogy. You know, you'll be going to sleep about 5 o'clock in the morning, I think.
All right, yeah.
So this one might be similar to the first one, but it's who's like the comedian who just loves to make everyone laugh.
Again, I think probably Paddy, but I think Ben Kelly, Ben Patches Kelly is quite a funny kid as well. Yeah, he is funny.
I was going to say Ben or Fran Breen as well. He has me in stitches. Yeah. Fran's like the oldest 20-year-old you'll ever meet. Like even when I started the gym, Fran was about 16, but he's best mates with Ellis and the older lads in the gym. So you're meeting him, you think, who's this man in a child's body? Do you know what I mean? He's so like, he's just a proper scouser, Fran. Do you know what I mean? So he cracks me up as well.
Who is the biggest drive in the gym?
Nathan, I would have said personally. I don't think there's many of the lads in there who work as hard as Nathan.
Is that what he said? Did he say? What was the question? Sorry, I thought you said drama queen.
He works the hardest. He's got the most drive.
Oh, look at I was going to say about drama. Oh, nice one. Yeah. There's a few of us, to be honest. I'd say me and Matt definitely the two hard workers. Cullen puts it in when he's not had eye surgery. All the lads that working hard, Gittins puts it in. Do you know what I mean? He's got some mentality in when you're sparring him. He's like a non-stop pace. So all of us are putting it in and working hard.
Talking about Ben Kelly as well. He's done like 4 training camps in a row and not even had a fight.
That's it. Yeah.
He's thinking about maybe making his pro debut in August, possibly. So all that work will kind of hopefully pay off for him.
Yeah. Same thing. I'm trying to say with Connor Wilson as well, who I do a lot of my training with. Connor's pro flyweight. He's 1-0, but he's not been able to fight because he's not on Cage Warriors. But as soon as he gets signed to Cage Warriors, he's going to absolutely run through everyone in the flyweight division. He's a beast. I can't wait for him to get signed and just smoke all them because I know how good he is. I'm training with him and sparring with him day in, day out. So Connor's another one who works really hard.
Yeah.
One to look forward to. Since you brought it up, Nathan, who is the biggest drama queen?
It's a good question. Don't really want to say. Who's the biggest drama queen?
Oh, man,
Joel Downey Cave in Australia, who's with us. He's a bit of a drama queen sometimes.
And the last one then is like the person that really gives you that big push when you're feeling that you're weakest or you feel you can't push on as much as that person that goes, come on, let's keep going, who gives you that biggest push?
I think Rimmer's okay at doing that. I think Rimmer's quite good, especially when you're in the cage. For my last fight, Matt Inman, if you kind of watch that fight, all you can hear is Rimmer all the way through the fight. World title, Matt, and pressure, go forward. Yeah. I think both him and Ellis cornered that fight absolutely perfectly, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I'd say Rimmer definitely knows how to spur us on. He's got a good way with words. And then Ellis as well puts a lot of time into all of us. And how committed he is as a coach makes you want to be committed as a fighter and work hard. Do you know what I mean? Because Ellis put so much time into us all, and he's kind of like the unsung hero of the gym. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't get sometimes as much recognition as he deserves because Ellis is like in the gym every day with us, coaching us all. And he's basically a joint head coach with Rimmer for us all. So Ellis as well pushes us on 100%.
He's also a fighter as well, isn't he, Ellis? Is that right?
Yeah, he's not fought for a while now. He's taken on more of a coaching role. He had a kid not too long ago.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't think he'll get back in there. He's doing very well with the coaching at the minute. So, but you never know. He could always get back in there and have one more.
Yeah, certainly.
So to wrap it up, Liverpool as a city, we're very lucky to have quite a few really high caliber gyms. Obviously, Next Gen, you've got Carbon and MMA Academy, just a few that stand out. Do you think Liverpool can push on and be sort of the main city for MMA in the UK?
For sure. Yeah, I think so. I was kind of speaking to this to somebody the other day, and it's kind of that Scouse attitude. They all just want to fight. None of them are scared. They don't care about. They'll kind of go through your 3 punches to land one. I think it's just, I don't know. It's the mentality that I kind of have picked up on since being there. There's no fear in sparring. They're all tough as nails, and obviously when you put the technical ability on top of that, and they've got the skills as well. But there's a reason why I come over from Warrington and Nathan comes over from Southport, to travel to Liverpool and Next Gens, because regarding the north of England, possibly the UK, it's the place to be for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I agree there. I think Liverpool definitely in the next sort of 4 or 5 years, you're going to see so many UFC fighters and Cage Warriors champions coming from all the gyms in Liverpool, especially Next Gen. Do you know what I mean? The group of guys we've got coming up are just such a high level now and all so hard working. And there's no bitching in the gym. Like what Matt said, it's probably that Scouse attitude. They're all just hard-nosed and willing to come in every day and put the work in to reap the rewards. Do you know what I mean? So, I can definitely see Liverpool taking over. And I think we're already on our way there with, Darren Till being in the UFC, being a big name. And then obviously you've got the likes of Molly and Fishy, and then Paddy's probably one fight away from getting signed. And then after him, that's just opening the door even more for the likes of me and Matt and all the other lads in our gym who are going to get signed in the next couple of years. So there's big things coming, definitely.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing it all. Well, again, thanks very much for taking the time today, lads. Really, really appreciate it. And best of luck in your fights next week. Know for a fact you're going to get the wins and move on to bigger and better things.
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it.
It's right, boys. Nice one. Cheers for having us on.
Nice one.
Anytime.